They cannot have this Caitlin Clark thing up any worse if they tried. The number of attention, eyeballs she's brought to college and the pros, and for these women to have this petty jealousness, what is going on here?
What is going on here? That is definitely the right question. Caitlin Clark, the rising star of the WNBA, who has brought so much more popularity to women's professional basketball, for some reason has so many people trying to tear her down. So who are these people and
what is going on here?
Let's start with Cheryl Swoopes, who, despite what you may think about her comments about Clark, which we're going to get into, needs to be acknowledged for her incredible playing career. A 4-time WNBA champion, 3-time MVP, and much, much more. She is a massive part of the history of women's basketball and is still involved in the game as a broadcaster for the Dallas Wings for now. I say for now because it appeared as though Swoopes was removed from her broadcast duties when the Wings played Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever, and the assumption is she was removed from the broadcast for that game because of some past comments and potential bias against Clark. In a podcast interview while discussing Clark's record-breaking college career at Iowa, Swoopes essentially said that Clark breaking the record didn't count, because she got an extra year in college due to the pandemic.
If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
The problem is Swoopes was just wrong about this, and she later admitted it. While Caitlin Clark was granted an extra year of college eligibility, she didn't use it. She could have returned to Iowa for another season, but chose not to, and still broke the record in the same amount of time as anyone else. Swoopes later apologized. Her and Caitlin Clark figured it out, but despite that, she's just been kind of labeled a Caitlin Clark hater, and for now appears to be taken off any Wings Fever broadcasts. Next up is another WNBA great, Diana Taurasi, who in some people's opinion is the GOAT of women's professional basketball. After one of Caitlin Clark's games in college, Taurasi went on ESPN talking about the transition for Clark from the college game to the WNBA and said this.
Reality is coming.
Okay.
There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
Of course.
And you see it on the NBA side, and you're going to see it on this side, where, you look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're going to come with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time.
Since then, Clark has had an incredible rookie season while leading the Fever, who were the worst team in the league last year, to their first playoff appearance in years. And in doing so, Clark and Taurasi have had some run-ins on the court as well. Plenty of trash talk, plenty of heated matchups, and ultimately Clark has earned Taurasi's respect, with the veteran heaping praise on the rookie and kind of eating her words on the whole reality is coming thing. But the Taurasi comments are indicative of a larger narrative around Caitlin Clark that has a lot of parallels to an NBA great, Steph Curry. The games of Clark and Curry are pretty similar, and so are the criticisms of it. Past NBA greats love to tear down Steph with claims of the physicality of their era, how they would take him out of the game, not let him shoot a ton of threes. And before coming to the WNBA, people said the same things about Caitlin Clark. The funny thing is, Clark hasn't even really shot the three that well this year as a rookie. She takes a ton of them, but has gone through long stretches of not being very efficient, and still has played extremely well as a rookie, and obviously has since proven that there is much more to her game. And related to Taurasi, arguably the biggest controversy around Clark so far has been her omission from the 2024 Team USA Olympic team. As much discussion as there is about Team USA men's basketball, the women's team has actually been more dominant on the international stage, and as they went into the 2024 Olympics in Paris to go for yet another gold medal, they made the interesting decision to leave Clark off the team. And the reason this is related to Taurasi is, of course, she is on the team. From a basketball perspective, there were pros and cons to putting Clark on Team USA. Obviously, her shooting and her playmaking would be a welcome addition, and she's clearly one of the most talented players in the league, but her lack of size, defense, and familiarity with the other players on the team were working against her. Not to mention, she would have had just half a season of WNBA experience by the time she played in the Olympics. But that's just the on-court discussion. Off the court, it's very easy to make the case that Caitlin Clark should have been on the Olympic team. If you just take a quick look at the attendance numbers in the WNBA, you can see the crazy impact Clark has had on the popularity of the league. Every Fever game does crazy numbers on TV, in person, and even at away games for the Fever, most of the fans are there to see Clark. And if you put that on the international stage, it would have been even crazier. So to some people, it was a terrible decision to keep Clark off of Team USA. Granted, I'm not sure who you take off the team. They still ended up winning gold, and Caitlin Clark is going to get plenty of opportunities to represent Team USA in the future. But this general animosity has followed Clark throughout her entire first season in the WNBA, and some of that frustration has even turned into physical altercations on the court. A ton of players have gone after her in her rookie season, in the press and on the court. So the question is why? What is it about Caitlin Clark that irritates these people so much?
What is going on here?
Really, a lot of this is an attention issue. There are a ton of unbelievably talented players in the WNBA that have been great players for years, that haven't gotten even a fraction of the attention that Clark has already as a rookie. To the people that have been in the league for years, it must be frustrating for Clark to just show up and get all the credit for the improvement of the league this year. But the thing is, Clark still deserves all of this credit, even if it's irritating to you. It's clear that she's the main reason for the surge in popularity. Any metric that you use ties her directly to it, and it's simply undeniable. And hating on her just doesn't make any sense for the league. The attention that the league is getting now, whether it annoys you or not, can genuinely improve the lives of these athletes. They have already had improvements in travel and overall exposure, more fans, more TV viewership, higher revenues. All of that stuff is great for the players. As league revenue goes up, so do player salaries, not to mention how all the attention on the league can lead to off-the-court endorsements as well. And the other issue that players around the league seem to have with Clark is the way that she's covered. It's almost like people think she's a perfect basketball player. Where other players get criticized for their flaws, it seems to them like Clark gets all of these excuses made for her. And they might not be wrong about that. Turnovers have been a huge issue for Clark her entire rookie year, and the Fever did get off to a terrible start to the season before turning it around, but nobody seems to want to point that out. And the reason for that is probably just because of the situation around her. Despite the talent around her like Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, there's still a lot of defensive attention on Clark every single time she touches the ball, which is a lot of responsibility for a rookie. And at times, she has struggled and put up some crazy turnover numbers, but also the expectations for this team were pretty low coming into the year, even after adding Clark in the draft. Indiana has pretty much been a disaster franchise for years, and they were the worst team in the league last year. So even if they struggled, people likely wouldn't have blamed Clark. But the thing is, she hasn't struggled. Despite all the pressure, she has lifted up women's professional basketball in an unbelievable way. Even with the crazy spotlight, the criticism, the physical play, she continues to exceed all of our expectations despite an insane amount of pressure on her. And I'd imagine that just like Swoopes apologizing and Taurasi giving Clark her props and Clark eventually being put on Team USA, things will level out for her within the league and she won't get nearly as much hate. But for now, this has been a pretty big missed opportunity for the WNBA. Instead of lifting up their biggest star and benefiting from the attention she's provided, they've instead decided to not focus on the basketball, not focus on the other great players, how unbelievably talented the league is, the really intriguing playoff races. They've just put all the media attention on tearing down Clark. So to answer the question,
what is going on here?
They're kind of screwing this up.